You are joining a live conference already in progress. If you would like to ask the speaker a question, please press 0.
We're eager to get to your questions. If you do have a question, please press 0 on your keypad and a member of our team will put you into the queue. While we wait for participants to get on the line, I just want to remind folks that we have about an hour together here. So we ask that you please be mindful of the clock when asking your question. We have a lot to cover, and we have over 600 pre-submitted questions, and we know hundreds of you are joining as we speak. So I just want to remind everybody that we're going to try to get to as many questions as possible that are as representative of the hundreds we've received already as possible. But if you are not able to answer your question live on this call, you will be prompted at the end of the call to leave a message, in which case a member of our team will respond to you shortly. And you can also visit our website, katherineclark.house.gov, to contact us, or call our district office at 617-354-0292. Once again, if you have a question, please press 0 on your keypad and a member of our team will put you into the queue. And now I would like to turn it over to Congresswoman Clark.
Hello, everyone, and good morning. And thank you for taking time out of your weekend to join me today. We are really going through it as a country right now, and I have received thousands of calls and emails from across our district. So I know that, like me, you are concerned and enraged. I wanted to provide a chance for all of us to come together, for me to share a few updates on where things stand in Washington, and for all of you to ask any questions or share your thoughts about what is on your mind. Let's start by taking a step back. At the beginning of this year, House Democrats said we would work with anyone to make life easier, safer, and more affordable for the American people. But instead, the Republicans have used all of their power to do just the opposite. It has been a fire hose. Every hour, another action is dismantling progress and making life harder for working people. Let's be clear. This chaos is a deliberate strategy. Their objective is to seize more control over your government, shut down basic services that you have already paid for, and use that money to cut taxes for billionaires and large corporations. That's the whole game. First, Trump ordered illegal across-the-board funding cuts, the so-called funding freeze. Within hours, the American people were speaking out, and Democrats joined to shine a light on the real-world impacts of those cuts, how it affected teachers, firefighters, patients, doctors, childcare providers. Within 24 hours, we had a court decision that halted this attempted theft of your tax dollars. Now, what we're seeing is they are trying to hand the reins of government over to Elon Musk. This unelected, unvetted billionaire, richest man in the world, is going after Medicaid, Head Start, the EPA, even the Department of Education. He is rifling through sensitive personal information like Social Security numbers, home addresses, and medical records. So from our IRS files to our Medicare accounts, all of it has been exposed. So what are we doing about it? We have a 3-point plan of attack: legislation, using the courts, and mobilization. So first, this week, we filed, as the Democrats in Congress, the Taxpayer Data Protection Act. This bill prohibits Elon or anyone else like him from accessing sensitive government information. It bars anyone who doesn't have lawful authorization, doesn't have a security clearance, or has a conflict of interest. I want to be clear that we only need 3 Republicans to join us to get this common sense bill passed in the House of Representatives. So we need to keep turning up the pressure and make sure that people know if their representative is selling them out to Elon Musk. Second, House Democrats are coordinating with our grassroots partners to take this fight to the courts. We've already had success getting court orders to stop these illegal actions. Just this morning, led by our own esteemed Attorney General Campbell, the court ruled that DOGE and Elon Musk must destroy any and all copies of materials they have downloaded and told them they are prohibited from accessing these databases at the Department of Treasury. We are going to keep finding every legal avenue to stop this takeover of our federal government. Third is mobilization. We are continuing to shine a light on what these actions really mean for everyday people, making clear this is not just some partisan battle. This has immediate, concrete consequences. And let me tell you, I am hearing these stories every day. Just last week, I received a message from a constituent named Kate, who lives in Medford. Kate has a spinal cord injury and needs in-home nursing care. She can only afford that care with the help of federal funding. Her housing, her health, her well-being, her survival is at stake. Kate told me she's not just worried about her own situation, she's horrified at what this means for disabled people across the country. She wrote, quote, "I try to be a good person and live a moral life, and I do not understand why he wants us all dead." These are dangerous times, but more than ever, we need to join together as neighbors, as Americans, as patriots. We need to speak out together. We need to organize and mobilize together, because it's only through our solidarity with one another that we can stand up for Bay Staters like Kate, protect our communities, and preserve our democracy for the next generation. It has never been more important for all of us to be engaged. So thank you again for taking the time to join me this morning, and let's open up the floor for questions.
Thank you, Congresswoman Clark. And we've got questions coming in to the queue. As a reminder, please press 0 if you have a question to ask, and a member of our staff will get you into the queue. Just to start off, because I know of the hundreds of questions, this has been dominating. Many people are asking, what can we as private citizens do to stop Elon Musk?
Thank you so much, Kelsey, for giving voice to this question that we are hearing everywhere, and I'm sure is on your mind. And I think we have to do a 3-part strategy to start. First is you have to know the power of your own voice. The data is showing us that the most trusted source of information as we try and navigate the misinformation and lies that we are being presented with is you. It is your neighbors, your friends, your coworkers, family members. That's who people trust to deliver them political news and factual news. So we have to keep the posts coming on social media, letters to the editor, conversations that you are having with people in your life about the real facts and what is going on in our country. Second, we have to find 3 Republicans. We have to make sure that we do not accept the GOP's silence. They're rolling over, ignoring what we are seeing happen in this country, which is a violation of not only our laws, but of our Constitution. They took the same oath of office that I did, that we will uphold our Constitution, and we have to hold them to it. I want to take you back to 2017 in the first Trump administration, where they were coming after our health care in order to do the same tax scam, the same playbook they're running today. Fund those tax cuts for the very, very wealthiest with your money and your health care. It's exactly what we're seeing happen today. But at this point in 2017, we saw citizens holding Republicans accountable. We saw them making sure that they were holding town halls to answer to their constituents. And if they wouldn't do it, they were holding town halls with empty chairs or by inviting a neighboring Democrat to come in. The pressure and the power is with you, and we have to make sure that we are continuing to point out that it takes only 3 Republicans in the House of Representatives to put a stop to all of this today. And we have to build the pressure on them to make sure that we are holding them accountable. And third, we need to hear your stories, the stories like I just shared with Kate. We need to make sure that your voice, the real impacts of these freezes, of these memos, of these security breaches are being felt at home. You have to help us translate what is this fire hose of outrage coming from this administration into real impacts into people's lives. These stories not only help us get the word out and communicate in real terms to the American people, but they also help the lawyers with the litigation that they are planning and executing every single day on our behalf to stop this takeover and disassembly of our federal government.
Great, and now we have a question from Katie from Natick. Katie, you're on the line.
Thank you, and thank you so much, Congressman Clark, for all that you're doing. My question is sort of 2 parts. Can Congress sue the president for overreach of powers, and can the minority party initiate hearings? Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. I'm really glad you asked this question, because this is a point that I think is very confusing to people. Members of Congress cannot sue on behalf of their constituents. There are certain situations where Congress as a whole can sue to ensure the executive branch is following the law, upholding the Constitution, but that takes a majority vote, and the Republicans have no interest in doing their job and upholding their oath of office. So at this point, we cannot sue the president. And we also have to remember that there is a Supreme Court decision that came down that gives the president wide immunity from from almost all of his official actions. So, and also the second part of your question around the hearings, we can't hold official congressional hearings, but we are fighting on every single committee and working day and night to investigate and expose what this administration and Elon Musk are doing. One good example, just this week, we tried to subpoena Elon Musk to appear in the Oversight Committee. The Republicans blocked that and are not letting him come and testify to answer to the American people. But we have to keep that pressure on. We have to keep issuing our demands, And when we can't do official hearings, we have to go around and do field hearings or unofficial hearings to get the word out and communicate to the American people what the majority is trying to hide from them. But, you know, part of what we are seeing, even though we lack the standing to bring these lawsuits, is that we are working so closely with our Democratic AGs and with outside groups that are winning in court every day about stopping Elon Musk and these very young hackers that he is trying to place into our most sensitive data systems in our government.
Great. Next, we have a question from John from Medford. John, you should be on the line.
Hi, I'm calling about the Social Security Fairness Act. The reason is my dad's a city employee, but also paid into Social Security. And as he nears retirement, he's really counting on it. So I was hoping you could just maybe give us the latest. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. You know, we do have some good news on this. The Social Security Fairness Act is now the law. And this ends a provision that is called the windfall elimination provision. And there's lots of acronyms about this, but here's what it boils down to. This is a win for millions of teachers, nurses, first responders, and retired public servants across Massachusetts in the country. And I really want to give a shout out to the Mass Retirees Association and retired base staters that helped us get this bill over the finish line. So Social Security Administration is finalizing its plan to implement this new law, and we do not have an estimated time frame for that. But these are the things that's important to do while you wait. If your dad has never applied for retirement, spouses or surviving spouses benefits, you need to file an application. And if you're entitled already to retired or disabled work benefits and your benefits are being reduced by the windfall elimination provision, or if you're entitled to surviving spouse benefits, consider reviewing all your mailing information and direct deposit information that Social Security has on file so that your adjusted benefits can get to you as quickly as possible. And also, just a word of warning on this, please watch out for scams. The Social Security Administration will never ask or require you to pay either for assistance or to have your benefits started or increased. So do not click or respond to anyone offering to increase or expedite your benefits. Thanks for the question.
Okay, next we have Mary from Belmont. Mary, you should be unmuted.
Hello. Thank you so much, Congresswoman, for taking my call, and I appreciate everything that you're trying to do in this ridiculous and horrible situation. It's clear that the Democrats have very few levers, and the only one that I can think that they really have right now is that the Republicans need them for the debt ceiling and budget. So I want to know whether the Democrats are prepared to stand 100% united in refusing any help on the debt ceiling or the budget until the law breaking stops, until they stop violating the Constitution, until Elon Musk is forced out of there, and until we, have control again over our institutions. So are the Democrats prepared to make no compromise on the debt ceiling until the Republicans stop breaking the Constitution? Thank you.
Mary, thank you for this question, and you have really hit the nail on the head. We have several major leverage points in the minority, and they are coming up fast. And the one that you've highlighted is a major one. And just for a little explanation around the debt ceiling, The debt ceiling has been a tool which is routinely used where we vote to increase the amount of debt that we can take on so we can pay our bills. It is the equivalent of getting the credit card statement. You've already made the purchases, and then you have to pay the bill. What we have seen Republicans doing in the past 10 years is using this as leverage to cut dramatically services that people rely on, whether that's, care for our veterans, people's health care, Social Security benefits, you name it, they have proposed it. And it has become a practice with them that is so dangerous because it is the full faith and credit of the United States. They are willing to plunge our economy over the cliff in order to be able to fund their tax payments, their tax cuts for billionaires. So I'll give you an example of the unity of the Dems on this issue. In December, it was the first time we'd really seen Elon come in and interfere with the workings in Congress. It was Elon Musk who came and said that Republicans stood ready to shut down government unless Democrats wrote a blank check by lifting the debt ceiling for the entirety of Donald Trump's administration so that they could do the tax cuts for billionaires and corporations, leaving working families and most Americans out in the cold. We said, if you want to shut down government, go ahead, because we are not giving you a vote on the debt ceiling. And we stood unified and defeated it, and we stand ready to do that every time they try and exploit that debt ceiling in pursuit of their tax cuts that don't include American families.
Great. Next, we have Monica from Stoneham. Monica, you are on the line.
Thank you. So I'm wondering, how will Democrats communicate to the public how much they will personally suffer when the U.S. government steps away from so much basic infrastructure for things like ensuring food is produced and gets to market, what people buy isn't poisoned with chemicals, and on and on. They really need the dots connected for them. I hear you describing how Democrats are trying to do this, but the message isn't nearly strong enough.
Yeah, thank you so much, Monica. And this is why we need your stories. We need these stories because it makes it so personal. Most people who are not paying attention to every one of these chaotic moments, they're just, they may have even voted for Donald Trump because they think that we need a government that works for them, and they feel that that is somehow broken. And what we have to show is this is a full-out assault. This is a theft of their tax dollars. And we have to, this is the challenge of our times. How do we get past misinformation? How do we speak loudly and clearly? And I can tell you that we are facing a very fragmented media information landscape. And House Democrats realize that we have to do better and that we have to address media disinformation, conservative media disinformation head on. So we are not only posting on Blue Sky, X, Threads, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, but also doing new media where we know that most Americans right now, especially younger Americans, are not getting their news from traditional legacy media. So we'll continue to show up there, but we also are doing the podcasts and showing up in places where people are there for information on sports or entertainment, but also getting their political news. But all of this is about translating what these fights, whether it's around obscure Washington talk around continuing resolutions and debt ceiling and reconciliation. What does that all mean to you? And that is going to be the challenge of this time. And we need your stories and personal experiences to be able to do this. But this is an all hands on deck, urgent messaging moment for us, communicating what these cuts, what Elon Musk is doing. And this is all focused on going around Congress so they can do these tax cuts. And what they're not talking about when they're talking about, that this particular small program does this, or spreading disinformation about what they do, is they have a very clear plan. That is to cut Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, to roll back food programs for hungry people, to make sure they are dismantling our education system, our special education system, increasing the cost of healthcare. They're trying to roll back the negotiations that we were able finally to get to bring down the cost of prescription drugs. The list goes on, but that is where they are going to come to fund these tax cuts. And that is where we all need to play our role in translating these policy decisions into real life impact. I'll give you just one more example. When we were talking about the funding freeze that would just happened a few weeks ago, that really started this Elon Musk takeover. One of the things that people didn't realize is that we fund firefighters with federal grants. For the city of Worcester, one of our largest cities in Massachusetts, if they had been allowed to freeze those grants, that was 90 firefighters that would lose their jobs. And we have to continue to show how these municipal services, police, fire, schools, our veterans programs, housing programs, all of these will be disrupted just when people are looking to us to give them more, to make the system work for them. One more example, price of eggs. We have seen the price of eggs, which was much talked about in the election, go up 37% since January. And partly that is because of avian flu. But what has the Trump administration done? They have dismantled our ability at the CDC, to the committee that is looking and working with the World Health Organization and others to address and stop avian flu. So if you are dismantling all of those researchers from helping to keep us safe, there is no way that the cost of eggs isn't going to continue to grow. And that is what we have to keep bringing all of these actions back to. Is it making life safer and more affordable? And so far, the resounding answer from Republicans is no to both.
Great. Next, we have Mike from Medford. Mike, you're on the line.
Good afternoon. Good morning, Representative Clark. Thank you for taking my question. I just wanted to know what Congress can do to protect federal workers from Schedule F and unlawful termination. Are there resources you can provide to help them through this, and what recourse can there be if these actions are proven to be unconstitutional?
Yeah, thank you, Mike. The federal workers are under full assault, and we know we have received so many calls and emails from federal workers who are terrified of what is going to happen, worrying about how they're going to put food on the table, and also worrying about the services that they provide being cut off from the American people. We need people to cut Social Security checks, to issue IRS refunds. As the previous caller mentioned, to make sure we have clean air and water, that our food is safe. These are all critical roles that sometimes when we talk about federal workers, we're not making that connection to the work they do every day to make our lives safer and to make sure that people are getting, that taxpayers are getting the benefits that they deserve. So we are approaching this. Our first strategy on this is going to the courts and working with federal employee unions and outside litigators to stop what we are seeing. One of those groups is Democracy Forward. We were able to stop the ultimatum to federal workers. It was an email from Elon Musk's Musketeers with the subject heading "Fork in the Road." And it basically said, you have to make a decision whether you are going to resign or not, and offered sort of a fake buyout that you could potentially maybe be paid through September if you resign now. The court has said we are halting that deadline, which was on Thursday, and we are reviewing this program and what is being offered federal workers. We've also seen that protection come in from FBI workers, our FBI agents who are critical to our national security, who are not only having their jobs threatened, but also having their personal information exposed because they were part of the January 6th investigation. So that's our first part of the strategy, is legal, which has been successful to date. Our second part is the rapidly approaching budget deadline of March 14th. And we have to make sure that the funding that we have sent to agencies continues to flow as Congress has directed and as required by law. I recently spoke to President Kelly, who's head of the AFGE, and he said this was his #1 request, that we use the budget process that is coming up right now to make sure that we are protecting the vital services that federal employees provide. So we know these are really scary times for you, and we are here to make sure that we stop what is happening, we stop these layoffs, and are able to use the budget process, which is, we are in negotiations now, but are going to stand strong for federal workers in that process.
Great. Next, we have Loretta from Maynard. Loretta, you should be on the line. Loretta?
Hi, Loretta.
Hello? Yes?
Hi, Loretta. It's Catherine.
Yes. Hi.
Do you have a question?
Yes, I do. Okay. I didn't know I was asking. Okay, yes. Hi, thank you, Congresswoman. My questions are two. One, you said that that Elon Musk has been told not to take our private information and use it and everything. How will that be audited? How will they know that they won't be that he'll obey that? That's #1. And #2 is on Facebook this morning on the Social Security Administration page, I saw that the Musketeers had put should go to X to get this information now, and everybody who is answering says no way. So will he be taking the Facebook page off and only being on X? Can he? Thank you.
Thank you, Loretta, for that question. So first, yes, what I was talking about earlier was that early this morning, a court stopped Musk and DOGE from having access to the Treasury system entirely. We have had a pause that a different court put in place, and allowed just 2 people from DOGE to access read-only, but this is an entirely banning them from the Treasury system. And it also requires that any person who access information from the Treasury Department's records and systems has to destroy any and all copies of materials they downloaded. So like any court order, we are expecting that this administration and Elon Musk, and as you said, his musketeers, will abide by the court's order. But we are watching carefully. The Democratic AGs who brought this are watching very carefully, and they will bring contempt and the fines and the possible other ramifications of breaking this order that can happen. But we have to rely on the rule of law in this country, and they are challenging that at every step. And this is chaos and a fire hose, so that we have to bring these suits in different venues and on almost a 24/7 basis. But we have to be heartened that the judges are responding. And these are judges put in place by conservative Republican presidents and otherwise. And these issues are holding in the court. So that is very good news as we move forward. And for the second part of your question, we will look into this Facebook. We should not be getting any Social Security information through X. So, we have pulled it up while you rightfully brought this to our attention. And following us on X is not an answer. This is, X is formerly known as Twitter. This is Elon Musk's social media site. He is unelected. He is not entitled to your information. And we have to make sure that the Social Security Administration is not having other sources of information for you. You can follow on X, but this should not be coming from the federal government.
Great. Next, we have a question. Your name didn't pop up, but a question about the legislation that the Congresswoman had referenced. If your line is unmuted, please ask your question.
Oops.
Yes. Hello?
Hi.
Hi. Hello. Hi, Kyle Stoneham. I'm hearing a lot about he has to follow the laws and we're going to pass legislation. And given the state of where things are right now, that seems kind of naive. And, as far as like convincing our fellow citizens and the Republican legislators, that also seems the typical rhetoric of, oh, they're supporting the billionaires, oh, and so on. It seems very bland compared to a literal Nazi takeover of America. Like, whatever we're doing and whatever leadership is doing is clearly not working. Talking about the price of eggs isn't cutting it. So I just want to, are there any other ideas for, other than letter to the editor about what we can do here?
Yeah, listen, we have to use every single tool we have, and we have to call it as we see it. We have Elon Musk, the world's richest man, who is not vetted. He's not a government, he was not elected to any position, taking over and dismantling our federal government. And what is he really trying to do? Further enrich himself. So we have to be very clear about what the stakes are, but we have to use the tools that we have. And the first one, the tip of the spear, is going to courts. And we have to continue to press them and meet them at every turn. That has been a successful strategy. When we can't control the floor and what comes in front of us in Congress, we have to use the courts and the rule of law as our first line of defense to what is a very real constitutional crisis unfolding before our eyes. And then we have to be clear, does the legislation that we have proposed that says you cannot do this, you cannot be a person like Elon Musk who holds over $15 billion worth of government contracts going into our most, vulnerable and security risk systems and take them over. And so we do propose legislation because we have to put pressure on the Republicans that they will lose their majority if they do not step up and meet this crisis. They are rolling over to Donald Trump and Elon Musk, and they need to put their party allegiance and their fear of a primary aside and do the right thing. And so we have to take this to the public. It is, the power of the people that is going to win the day here. And we will use these points that we have coming up for leverage to stop them. But we have to rely on the courts for the immediate help and for making our case with the people about what's going on. And I hear you that when you feel like our Constitution and basic dignity and privacy is being shredded in front of our eyes, that talking about the cost of eggs feels like the most inane thing. But we have to remember that we have to bring this back to why Donald Trump got elected. He got elected on a promise to make things more affordable, to address the cost of living that is really squeezing people. And so while we are focused and working on these issues of legality and constitutionality, we also have to bring this home to why it matters to you around your kitchen table and why this is so important if you want to be able to have economic security as well as security of your privacy and security for your family. There is nothing that increases your security by pardoning January 6th violent criminals. There's nothing that increases your security by harassing and targeting FBI agents for their work on behalf of the U.S. government. So all of these pieces have to be fit together and done with urgency on all of these fronts. And we need your help in it. This is not something that any one member of Congress or the Democrats in Congress can do alone. This is the time for this country to stand up. And that's why I'm so heartened that I've received over 3,000 calls and emails. It is out there. We all have to do everything we can. And I have to use every bit of leverage and power that we have to make sure that we are changing public sentiment, that they understand what these risks are, what they are doing to their own family situation and budgets, and what they are doing to your rights as a citizen of this country, and how all of it is very much at risk in this time.
And in addition to the 3,000 calls and messages, we're up to over 700 questions for this town hall. So we're getting through as many as possible. Next up, we have Kathy from Medford. Kathy, You are on the line.
Hello.
Hi, Kathy.
Hi. My question is, how can we help? What can we do to protect? I'll start with immigrants and trans people who are being attacked, but also all the democratic institutions.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Kathy. You know, it seems like a small move, but thank you for being on this call. Thank you for asking the question about what can we do, because as we have been saying, this has to be an all hands effort. We have to put pressure on this administration and their enablers in Congress. It's worth repeating. It takes 3 of them. I am not expecting them to immediately find a conscience and remember their oath to uphold the Constitution while it is under attack here. But we have to use the pressure of people, just like we did in the last Trump administration, to hold those Republicans accountable while they sit there in silence and acquiesce to all of this. And we have to make sure that we are looking after the most vulnerable members in our community, whether that is immigrants, whether that is the transgender community. We have to continue to say we see them and that we understand that when their rights are being trampled, when bigotry is being put into legislation and rhetoric every single day, that we are here offering the true American spirit. You know, it is in our Declaration of Independence that we are created equal under law here in this country. And we continue to try and live up to those ideals. But we cannot be afraid to stand up for the LGBTQ community, for immigrants in our community. And we are working to make sure that we are connecting with local groups and getting the word out. If your community doesn't have an LGBTQ committee that supports people in community, let's start one and make sure that they can see us being active in their defense, and that we know that diversity is a strength, but our power comes from standing together in this time.
Great. Next up, we have Jennifer from Arlington. Jennifer, you're on the line.
Hi, my name's Jennifer. I live in Arlington, Mass. And I do want to thank you, Representative Clark, for the work that you and the other Democrats are doing to draw attention and to try and stop this in the works. My question is about the draconian cuts to scientific funding and to communications with the NIH, FDA, and the CDC. Just last night, it seems esoteric, but the drastic cut in indirect costs for federal grants to universities is going to devastate universities. This means we are going to lose a generation of scientific trainees, a generation of research, and our tuition costs are going to skyrocket. So what are you and the other Democrats going to do to try and stop this?
Jennifer, thank you for this question, and it's an area we haven't really covered yet in this town hall. When we are talking about the targeting that is going on, and that I think will get worse before it gets better, they are looking at targeting universities that they perceive as out of step with the extreme agenda of this administration. And what does that mean? We know in Massachusetts that we are the best in the world at taking ideas out of academia from our incredible institutions that are just doing life-saving and groundbreaking research and putting it into the marketplace. And so when, as you pointed out, we disrupt this pipeline of innovation, of breakthroughs in science, we are not only going to pay for it in the short term, but in the long term, we are not going to have these life-saving discoveries, and we are not going to have the robust economic effects when the United States is the leader in research and science. So this has, it's one of these things that that we have to really keep an eye on and make sure that we are fighting for. So this is going to be, also tied to we're seeing them do things that are so outrageous, like tying our transportation money to marriage and birth rates, vaccine policies that are going to roll back public health. We're already seeing some measles outbreaks in Texas where they have very low vaccination rates in that area. So all of this sort of attack on science, on facts, on public health is creating a crisis, as we are also needing to fight the constitutional crisis that we're in. One of the major areas that we are going to be able to push back is around this budget. They have to fund government by March 14th or it goes into a shutdown. And when they do that, they have to guarantee that they are going to fight for the money that we allocate to this research. We have heard from a woman who was participating in a pilot program at NIH for her rare cancer. She was scheduled for the surgery she needed to save her life, to be in part of this pilot, and because the research dollars were frozen, that surgery was canceled. So those are the very real, immediate, threatening situations that are happening, as well as what we were seeing with the canceling of the committee at the CDC looking into avian flu. These are assaults on the American people's safety and security, and our leverage coming, that we are going to be able to exert over this budget process is approaching. They have 4 weeks left to answer what the American people need and to commit to making sure that the administration does not interfere with Congress's legal and constitutional role of getting this funding to critical programs in our communities.
Great. We just have a few minutes left here, but next up we have Barbara from Sudbury.
Hi, thank you very much. I'm Barbara from Sudbury. This is kind of a follow-up on one of the earlier questions that were raised, but the only way to persuade at least 3 Republicans in the House to switch their votes is to reach their constituents. Their constituents are the ones who have to pressure them, rather than Democrats preaching to the choir. Would the Democratic machinery consider advertising on Fox, where they're all getting their news, reaching into the right-wing media, just investing in that communication, because we have to reach them. We are all convinced we need to persuade the Republican voters to pressure their representatives to switch sides.
Yeah, thank you, Barbara. And that is a great point. We need to meet voters and the public wherever they are. And if they're on Fox, we have to be there as well, not only in paid ads and communication, but we got to show up as members of Congress on Fox. Fox has a lot of daytime programming that is just excellent opportunities for us to get the message out about what is happening here, how severe these attacks are. how unfair this whole system is to taxpayers in this country, to working people everywhere in the Commonwealth and in every single state. So we can't afford to just appear on MSNBC and be in any sort of echo chamber. It is important that we're there as well and across legacy media, but we've got to show up in these places and with influencers that are not our natural places to go, because we have to bring this message home to voters who voted for Donald Trump, but they didn't vote for this. You know, maybe some small minority did, but most people voted to make their lives better, safer, and more affordable. And so far, every action is doing the opposite. And, you know, pushing back against misinformation and sort of the conservative media that is really just an outlet for some of these outrageous lies that are being told to manipulate the public. We've got to show up on some of them. It's not pleasant, but we've got to do it. And we've got to give, you know, meet people where they are consuming news and politics.
All right, just time for a couple more. We have Yam from Medford. Yam?
Oh, hi, this is Yang, and I am just wondering, because I see all the information are everywhere. Since you mentioned some misinformation, and I went to X, I think you brought out a very good point. So we need to go to a different platform to understand the information. Since I'm in the X and saw some information, and I would like to verify if this are the true information are fact we should consume, or we deem them as a false information, okay? So first of all, I think you said the Elon Musk is still public information from the public. Is him still the information, or she just got the information for the interest party, established party? And also, is he disclosing the billions of taxpayers' money missing or have been pocketed into the established party or interest group, including, which I saw, right? $10 billion supposed to go to Ukraine and missing. And also, is that the Biden's government support the Wuhan lab, which issuing the COVID-19, which caused millions of people dying, right? And also is that millions of dollars, like including to oversee, to Hamas, to support Hamas to buy condom. And also millions of dollars to teach men to have sex with men in poor countries. So I guess from a general public point of view, public got benefit because we never know how the government, how our elected officer use the money. I mean, if those info are true, I would appreciate what Elon done, because those information our public would never know. And also, I think you said misinformation, so suggest us to listen to the legacy media. From some reason, from my job experience, and I found out the legacy media's not always reporting true. They're far away from what I see from my real life. And I always thinking they are the independent medias until Elon Musk disclosed. The legacy media had millions of dollars from the government. And I think our public should have a right to know, are they independent medias or they have been funded by the government? What's the purpose for a government to fund independent medias? Are we supposed to make them independent or serve the government's propaganda? We had to ask the question, which one are report the fake news? Because I see the country, people are so divided. I guess it has everything to do with which news are we supposed to trust. Are they spreading the fake news? For example, I knew the COVID vaccine developer. Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, I just want to be able to get to another question, and I think that you have raised so many good points. Listen, we have a situation here where Elon Musk is going in illegally and unconstitutionally disbanding programs. And as you have pointed out, the lies that they are telling to justify their actions are very confusing to the public. And that's where we all need to come in. The payments that you referred to, Hamas, have been completely debunked. That was a total fabrication. But as you pointed out, when people hear that, they're like, well, I don't want my tax dollars going to that. But it is meant to get people anxious, to create cynicism about government, and to continue to undermine people's confidence in what government is doing. So if you take the recent, you referenced also a recent twisting of what they said about USAID, which is our international development agency. It is one of the three areas in which we need to secure our national defense. One is DOD's budget and our military and defense budget. Two is the State Department and diplomacy against the world, for the world. But three is also development and the work that USAID does. It is absolutely critical, not as a charity, not as, ridiculous stories they are fabricating about payments to Hamas for condoms, or that they are, putting Politico, which is, on the payroll. It is about making sure that we have national security. And so answering this, it goes back to what you referenced, the question before you. You can see all the spending on usaspending.gov. There is transparency around that, but it's complicated and people don't have time to go through it. And what we need to do is push back against these lies. Almost every single one of these sort of 12 core lies they've talked about has been debunked by multiple news organizations, outside of partisan politics organizations, and we're happy to show you some of those sites and refer you to those so that you can see and help spread the word about how misleading this information is. And it's part of their chaos agenda to keep us off balance, anxious, cynical about what is in fact absolutely critical infrastructure for our national security and safety of families at home.
Thank you. We are over time now, so I just want to say thank you to everybody and remind everybody, if you did not get to ask your question, please stay on the line. At the conclusion of the call, you'll be prompted to leave a message, or you can call us at 617-354-0292 or send a message on our website, katherineclark.house.gov. And I'll turn it over to the Congresswoman for closing remarks.
I just quickly want to say how deeply grateful I am to all of you for participating in this, for your ideas, for your comments, your questions, and for how you are meeting this moment for our country. We are at a time of great danger, but all of you are inspiring me that we are going to meet this danger with resilience, with resilience, without fear, and really be the ones to push for the American people's voices to be heard, to uphold our Constitution and the rule of law, and to make sure that we are doing right by families at home. Thank you all for being part of this. Thank you for joining this call.
Please press 1 to leave voicemail.